Welcome back to Moto here in the Soul Space Garage, going over cool hacks and tricks. Today we're going to talk about MOLLE systems and PAL grids right after this. Yes, new season. Looking online and shopping around, I started to see a lot more advertising and marketing for MOLLE attachments or MOLLE capable or proper MOLLE spacing. And I thought I'd do a video about what the finer points of that. So I'm seeing soft pannier bags, tank bags, jackets, vests, articles, pouches, etc. that are all referencing this. Now it's a military and tactical based infrastructure, and has just kind of gone over into mountaineering, backpacking, hiking, etc. and now, motorcycling. Now I'm sure it's, it has leaked itself in over throughout the years, but people see it and like, oh cool, way to clip things on. But there is some finer points to how that really works and doesn't work with certain items. It stands for Modular Lightweight Load Carrying Equipment. It's an acronym, M-O-L-L-E, Modular Lightweight Load Carrying Equipment. And that would be items like this, guns, the knives, sheaths, artillery pieces, things like that. The actual grid that it goes on is actually called a PAL grid, and it stands for Pouch Attachment Ladder System. So in reality, this is a PAL grid, and this would be a MOLLE. But regardless, people just refer to it as MOLLE. Simple enough. So let's get into the finer points. Let's jump in. So here's an example of a PAL grid, or we'll call it a MOLLE system grid. And by the standards put in place by the military, that would require spacings of, you can see here, red, 25 millimeters by 40 millimeters. And you can see that the spacing here in between is 25, and the tacking space is 40 by the blue. And then it's a 25 millimeter or roughly 1 inch webbing. This spacing, as far this way or as that way as you want to go, can be in belts, backpacks, pieces of soft bag panniers like this comes from, and utilized everywhere. Now here's an example of the smaller type of setup. This is just a tiny little tank bag by Moto, but you see there's a grid here. Now instead of using a webbing grid, this is a more modern, simpler system, and this is actually Hypalon, which is the same type of material you'd see on a rubber boat lining. It's very, very strong and waterproof and whatever. So it's much easier to just stamp a grid out and then sew it onto a panel. It works, but this is a simple 2 by 3, or actually it's a 1, 2, spacing. So on top of that, you can now use something here like this would be a little cell phone holder, and again, this spacing here on the back is 25 by 40, and then here's some loops to put it through. So you could not use the loops and take them out, and use a different type of mounting system to get it on there. It's a little more rigid, but I use this around my handlebars. But this is just a very simple example of a smaller way to do it, but it can get pretty expansive, all the way up to something I'll show you shortly. Now, based on that grid system, you can see that this is how it would offset, about like that. And so your attachment straps, something like these, feed down through. And the key to do this is that you actually go under and over and under and over and under over every single one. That's how you're going to get it to really, really lock into place. Secondly, it's important that if you at least have 2 rows, like attached with 2 rows. Otherwise, you'll get some roll. And if you do everything correctly, you will end up with something that feels sewn on and solid and not slopping around. A lot of people have mentioned, oh, I don't necessarily want to go in that direction because everything feels loose and sloppy, like as though it was a knife on your, or a pouch on your belt, which tends to, generally feel kind of sloppy, which would be something like this. It's going to pivot and rotate this way. If you have 2 of them and they're tightly spaced, things will sit really, really tight. Here's another example of something that doesn't want to sit very well. Well, I've got some tips and some pieces to show you how to make something like this sit really, really, really solid. Here's an example of something that would not fit very well. Notice that although I can get this to line up in between with a mount, this one is off by halfway. And not only that, the grid spacing is off, so you're going to get some shuck in this direction going back and forth. So this could slide this way and never really sit, it'll kind of, sort of pucker and never sit perfectly flat. Another common thing I've seen is that every single row is done. So you can pick and choose whether it's mounted this way or whether it's mounted this way. And that allows for a 1-inch adjustments this way or this way. So that gives you a much more detailed movement, whereas some of them you have to go in 2-inch chunks. Now here's an example of a lot of the attachment pieces that I've found over time, and you can take advantage of all the different ways that these can be mounted on the PAL system or the MOLLE system. If you have your standard pouch like this, one of my favorites to use is what's called the MOLLE sticks, and it has a little clip system with a lock, and it pops up and it pops down, and that locks it tightly onto the webbing. So you can force this through, go in and out the layers, and when you get to the very last one, pop it down, it locks it into place. It's not going anywhere. And that's a really, really rigid system. These are very, very lightweight, and so you'd be going through in and out and in and out every other one and run 2 of them and lock them down, and this is going to feel like it's sewn on. The other system, which is cost-effective and tends to come with a lot of pouches, is what's called a Natick strap, which are these pieces here. And so set your pouch on, and then you feed these, because they're already attached. You just feed them through, and then snap them here. It's simply, you don't have to carry any extra pieces, and it works. So here's a double wide, and again, the spacing works with the grid. So here is a loose single. You see that the fit is correct, and it snaps and it fits the grid. This would be a 3 spacing, like that. If you just happen to have regular strapping laying around with some kind of pull piece on the end, this is standard 1-inch webbing. You can find it at hobby stores and online. You can use this through and just cinch down items that are loose, or a raincoat, or a windbreaker, or a pair of pants, or tool pack if you had to. If if it's larger and happens to have the a couple basic straps attached to it, like this. You can see this is not part of the grid. However, if this was facing in this direction, you could go through with either a voile strap or a pronghorn, as it's called, and come around and go through here, underneath, and cinch this down. Here's one of my favorites called a G-hook. And take the back side of this and go through a couple of these and back to itself. And this gives you a really long expanding size. And this is good for rain jackets, pants. And feed that through like this, and it's just a quick release. So that's one of my favorites as well. If you have something like this piece, which doesn't really hold very well, you can see this is really old and sloppy, and it's not really, it's meant for a belt type of thing where it would hang on your belt. But if you can get this part through here, and then using these, we've seen a lot, you can go through a bunch and around it and lock this on really, really tight. And that will keep this whole end from flopping around. Another common system is this piece. And you can see this would pop through here and lock on with these little catches. And right here are these 2 little bits, and that's where this webbing pops in, or this bungee pops in and around and holds things really tight. So you just kind of release that, and that's good for holding flashlight, going around bear spray, cylindrical items, etc. This is kind of neat. This will fit right through the MOLLE will fit in here, so it stays attached all the time. And then it's a quick, this would be for water bottles. It's a quick carabiner. It's strong. Just pull this, and away it goes. If you need a quick strap to get webbing through, that's, you know, grocery bags, that type of idea, where it becomes a hook. And this is what I actually use for a helmet hook on my bags. I just have this attached, and I flick it down, just hang my helmet on it, and that's actually pretty fast. There you go. This is a hydration hose. This can go anywhere up and down your shoulder, and can go this direction or this direction for narrow. That's for narrow size. This is for the wide size. And pop that in there, and rotates around, and there's for your hydration hose. This is a quick release. If you don't want to feed something through, this can go around, and when it snaps down, it's a quick release like this. So for example, I had something I need to get off fairly quickly. You can see it's on there, and then it's off. Quickly, just an example for that might be this. If I need to have it with me at site, that locks in fairly well. Quick release. There's my pocket knife. I put it on my belt at the camp. So that's some basic ones that I've seen. Another idea is, doesn't really MOLLE related, but I have a roll of this bungee, and if you have some extra areas, you can just feed this bungee through and put a zip tie on the end at just the right tension. It allows you to pull through and back, but you can shove hats, gloves, a pair of goggles, things like that underneath this. So wherever you have a section you don't need to use, this is a great idea as well. Now, if you want to push that to the limit, this is the WLF Enduro Vest from a place out west, and this has a full grid all the way across. You can see here, correct spacing, and it goes all the way across or around your waist and then all the way up the back, as well as a pouch for 3 liters of water. And all of these pouches can be moved and shuffled around in any order and add or take away or replace as fit. Brilliant piece. And on top of that, on the straps over the shoulders, there's even more properly spaced on the padded straps. Cannot recommend this piece enough. If you have any questions regarding the WLF Packfest and the trail integrated carrying system that they have on here, above me is a link to a video that just deals with this item, or you can go to WLFenduro.com and get hooked up through there. Put my name in there, order notes, and it'll give me a little credit for turning you on to this. It's a pretty slick little piece. I'm gonna give it the old 1-2 punch out on the trail and give a review in a little while. Okay, I hope that clarifies any questions or thoughts you might have had about MOLLE attachment systems, whether you're veteran riding scene or new to it. When you start seeing that product name flying around or that acronym, hopefully it will make a little more sense for you. If you're going to order some items online or things that you've seen, aside from going to a Army Navy store, the spacings could be all over the place, and they may start to say, oh, MOLLE style, but boils down to that 25 millimeter by 40 millimeter that's really going to help that grid lock in and keep things from flopping around like I showed you. And if you do have other items or things that you buy that you do want to utilize, knives and sheaths and things like that, take advantage of some of those clips that I showed you, and that you can really snug things down and lock them into place. Okay, I hope that's helps a lot. Like and subscribe, and let's get this ball rolling. Thank you so much.